All right, hello and good evening to each and every one of you here on this Sunday night. And oh boy, I have been absolutely busy with a lot of things today. But right now, I'm going to take a break from that, and we are going to do this week's edition of Ticket to Ride, and we will get to that here shortly. First, we are going to do the Wordle for today. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. Before we get into anything else, so let me move this down. But maybe that's as much as I can do. But it's okay though. Let's see, is it that? No. How about Isles? Maybe not that kind of spelling, but okay. Let's just try this one. Okay, we got the A. Let's try this one. All right, well, we got the C. We got 4 of the letters. Try admit. All right, we got the A in place. S pick, or however that is pronounced as. All right, well, that's the word for today. And now, if I have the iPad capture, good, it wasn't altered. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. However, everything does not appear to be showing right or working correctly, so I gotta reset it. All right, there we go. Now it's working. But now we don't have any sound suddenly. Or, oh, yeah, I forgot I turned the volume down. Okay, now we are off and running here tonight. Here's what I was trying to work on earlier. So yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about some things here as we're getting started tonight. Well, first off, let's start with what happened. Basically a sort of review. For those of you who were not able to join us last night for our special, for our weekend funny game show. So I'll talk about that here in just a second. I'll talk about that here in just a moment. So starting off with, again, as a sort of review. So Wednesday night, after we concluded our first weekly test show back from that long time at work, well, I can tell you that nothing much really happened. I mean, it was just getting those Tom Ben clips moved over, and that was really it. There wasn't anything else after that. So it was just all in all, plain simple night. All in all, plain simple night. There just wasn't anything else too special about it. So that was Wednesday night. And then going into Thursday, as you all may know, I had the day off from Downers Grove because the original plan was for me to go into town for work that day. That was going to be the original plan. However, that did not end up happening, and it is actually because there wasn't anything assigned to me at that time, so there wasn't even really a reason to come. So, what ended up happening during that day off? Well, I was expecting Chicago to make their test up, but ultimately that did not happen because there was another potential for severe weather that day. So I did try to get a county request episode or two made. However, the first one I tried was unsuccessful. By the conclusion of my lunch break, a watch got issued, so that pretty much eliminated any chance of me getting another county request episode done. So that was what happened on the Thursday. Well, that. Plus, in addition, doing some maintenance with my other PCs, which mainly included installing the August 2026 security update that rolled out more features. Well, more new features and enhancements, of course. My small form factor PC just installed the update on its own because I forgot to pause updates beforehand. I forgot to stop the update from going on there automatically beforehand, so that's why it ended up installing by itself. So that knocked the whole network offline that Wednesday night. But then, of course, Thursday, as I've stated, I went ahead and updated the rest of the devices. That includes my XPS, which is on the Windows 10 Extended Security Update program, which will continue for another year. Which will continue on for another year. And along with that, the rest of the devices, which are on Windows 11. My 7506, I actually updated that one the day the security update came out. So I updated it the day the update was released. So that was the first one to get it. The small form factor was the second one, so then I ended up updating the rest of them. Particularly my HP laptop, which is in the other room right now. The two Lenovo's that I recently acquired. The Dell Micro, which we're streaming on right now. The 3670, my 3020 desktop, and the Inspiron 3880, which was in the other room back at home. So I spent the whole Thursday doing some final hardware maintenance and anything. The other final piece of maintenance was switching out, RAM capacities. So I put the RAM configuration as it was before. The 3670 is now back at 16 gigabytes, and now actually that's at 20 gigabytes. 16 is actually how much my small form factor PC has now. My small form factor has now. And in addition to those, I did try to, see if I could get Haze Weather Radio running. However, I did have some success in this, as with some of the built-in codes, like the 000 for all the US, the US code. I did try that code out with the Haze Weather, the original Python version. However, I couldn't seem to get the US codes to work because those other codes I put in there were like KYC001. While they did show up in the web panel on the original version, the Asmara did not recognize those as valid headers. So it just skipped that altogether. So I got in touch with the creator of it that very same day, and I did expect a response that I was expecting, that the older Python version didn't have really good support for the US, US same county codes. So he ended up suggesting that I try the newer version, which should have US support. While I was able to get the Linux version mostly going, I still have that virtual machine with the Linux and the Java. I probably should have done that today, but I'll talk about I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So the Linux version I've had was mostly successful in getting it up and running. However, it's the IceCast that's been the problem. But this actually was the case too when I was running it inside of a VM, which is why I had later on in the testing of the initial version to instead run it on an actual machine inside of the subsystem for Linux. And it did actually, in fact, work. So that's what ended up happening. So that was for Linux. So while I did mostly have some success with that, trying the Windows version, however, on the other hand, it was a huge pain to try to get up and running. It was a huge pain to get it up and running. But let me be exact on the wording here. While mostly, I did get through a majority of, the requirements, but then the pain part about all this was that it made me install these, in addition to all the other things that was listed, like CMake, the Go programming language, all that, it made me install some other stuff just to get it running. There's one component that I did install. I did go through the prompts and, so that way I know which components I needed to install to get it to run. However, I did install those components and they were not able to be found. But like I said, this was Thursday night, so I didn't even have enough time because I had to get everything packed up for the Lawn of Oaks, and pretty much time was of the essence at that point because I needed to be in bed early because I had to be up earlier than normal, so that way I could pack everything up and then head to Downers Grove afterward. So I did not have enough time to get back to him regarding the Haze Weather project, which I'm still devoted in getting up and running on my side. But it's so far been a little bit of a struggle, but it was fun trying it out on that same day. Trying out the manual alerts function. But oh boy, I'm gonna keep all that. So yeah, I'll get back to testing Haze Weather after my 2-week stay here is done. But then again, so continuing on then with the plans here. So Friday, of course, as I stated, I was in Downers Grove, and really the only thing that I did there was updating their devices. The rest of the devices that needed to be updated, specifically 2 Dell Micro PCs, the newer micros, that one of them replacing the 3060 micro that I have right now, and then the other being a HP Office Tower PC that only has a 7th generation Intel CPU and and only 4 gigs of RAM. So that's how bad it was. It was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad machine, but I'm glad there's one that actually works. That actually works much better now. So yeah, one that works much better, or more powerful, rather. One of them actually had I had a little difficulty trying to get it to start because the Windows Update thing wasn't even going, so I had to resort to the media creation tool to get to the latest version, which ultimately did work. And then after I got the update thing, the feature update completed, I had it install all the other updates that it was missing. And then after all of that was said and done, then that was pretty much it. There was nothing else to it after that, as everything was already up to date. Well, after that, that was pretty much the end of it. There was a lot of driver updates that was missing, and then, the August update, because that was an update from an older version. Well, from a few months ago. That's really what I think it was. Probably June 2026. So it was a little behind, but we got it caught up to speed. Yeah, we got it up to speed. So now it's running the latest revisions as it should, which, of course, that's always a good thing. And then during that time, in addition to updating those micros, the 5 Latitude 3420s, the 1 remaining Lenovo Flex, and the only one officially remaining now Dell Pro 14-inch PC that had yet to be assigned to an employee. I don't know if I'm pretty sure that's all the employees that are supposed to get new Windows devices. So the big question I have now is, what are they going to do with those Dell Latitude? Are they going to retire those completely, or are they going to retire only a few of them? I pretty much think they're going to be keeping all of them as extras. That's personally what I think will be happening. But of course, only time will tell what ends up happening. Right then and there. What will end up happening right then and there. So only time will tell at that point. Yeah, at that particular point. That, and also during that time, scrolling through the radio dial, seeing what was on. And of course, I found the K-Love and Air 1, which were both coming in. Air 1's reception was kind of mixed, but K-Love was pretty good. So yeah, I had put both of those stations on, switching between the two periodically. And those may sound like very familiar names to all of you. And K-Love will come back into play later. So, then after all of that was done, my lunch break, it was quite a big lunch break, in fact. Had my usual lunch, then they had the leftover, a bunch of leftover sandwiches, some fruit salad or whatever, and then some fruit salad or whatever, and some donuts that they had. I don't know when they got those, but I don't know when they got those, but I assume they had them for a good while. So they got that. So they ended up getting those. I only had one, but it was very good. It was a very good donut. All of them, I think, were equally good. So, yeah, that's what I had for just a final thing to have before going to downtown. Where actually I was treated to a lot of good catches. If you have not seen that video I made of Downers Grove yet, if you haven't seen it. So, of course, I missed the Southwest Chief number 3. The only Amtrak, the long distance one that I got, was Zephyr number 5. That was the only Amtrak one of only 2 actually. The other one being the evening Carl Sandburg out of Chicago, but I didn't get it on video because I assumed it was going to be another Metro. So, yeah, I shouldn't be making assumptions based on a pattern. So, yeah, it was my fault that it was my assumptions that led me to missing out on that Metro train, on that Amtrak Zephyr, but that's okay. Because then I was treated to something else, too. A Heritage unit, which I've not seen before. And of course, not one, but two outbound express trains. Back to back, actually. Now, I had not seen an outbound express go through Downers Grove yet, because usually I'm only there in the morning, just at the station in the morning to see the inbounds go through. The two inbound express trains that happen like what, 40 minutes apart? They're half an hour apart. But both of the outbound express trains came through pretty much nearly at the same time. So the one on the outbound track came by first, followed by the inbound, followed by the center track, and that was like one of the last ones. Because then the last train that I caught was number 1284, which I think is by far the furthest out of all the metro trains that I think that I've gotten by far in the entire in the series history. Because I got very close to that the last time we were there beyond the end of the main time. Because the last time was when I was at that GME and Every Day's a Sunday ice cream place. Yeah, that was the last time. So I've actually gone much farther this time around than before. And then after all that was done, I went over to Pierce's Tavern for dinner with my parents. That's because my father, who I'm working, who is a teacher at the place I'm working at, which I've been working at for the summer. And I do have some news regarding that place too, which I'll talk about here soon. Which I'm going to talk about soon. So he had the meet and greet, so we got to meet some of his coming students. Yeah, he got to meet his new students this year. They also had a bouncy house and some food trucks set up on the outside, which I saw partially setting up for earlier that afternoon. But of course, I didn't get to see the full setup until we were leaving town. I didn't get to see the full setup until we left town. So, and what did I get at the Pierce Tavern? Well, of course, I got that good cheeseburger, and they even offered a side of chips as well. So, on their menu. So that was an offer I definitely couldn't refuse. So I took advantage of the chips and had that as my side, and boy was I absolutely stuffed. So after all that, we ended up that's when we ended up heading out to the Lawn of Oaks right then and there. Maine down to Ogden. Well, Maine up to Ogden, then to 294, then all the way to, Oak Lawn. Simple as that. And then that night I just got everything set up, and there wasn't anything else much. As I was spending that night getting Downers Grove put together, finalized, whatever. So I spent the entire night getting those two finished. Downers Grove from that day, in addition to the collection of alerts from this past week, which includes everything from more notably Tuesday, where I was put under that tornado warning. And of course, it caught me by surprise, but at the same time, I was expecting it. I was kind of expecting it based on tornado possible tags that I had been seeing in those products. So that was, and while I was getting those put together, I had K-Love on, and they ended up running a weekly. K-Love ended up running a weekly on that Friday night. So,
Let's see if I can find the time that happened. WLVW. So, yeah, Friday night, 11:07 Eastern Time, or in our time zone, 10:07 p.m. That's when K-Love ran up weekly. But if anybody who still cares about EMF keeping score, right now it's been 2 days since they've tested, and currently the next day 4 would be Tuesday this week. So Tuesday would be the next day 4 if anybody's keeping score. If anybody's still keeping score of EMF stuff. Alright. Alrighty. So yeah, that was Friday night. And I had already finished in 2 things. Well, first I had already finished the compilation. And second, as you all know, I don't even include EMF. I have not done any EMF tests anymore. And if I had not discontinued EMF weekly sooner, I would have discontinued it later anyway because of the reasoning I had just mentioned regarding the national alert thing being discontinued. So it was at that point inevitable. So, but yeah, that was Friday, and then yesterday I had quite a busy morning. Yeah, a very busy morning, in fact. Yeah, I can tell you how very, very busy I was with things. There was, we went to a doctor's sort, and then afterward, before we went to the grocery store that morning, we ended up going to a McDonald's location I have not been to before. One off of 103rd and Cicero. That's a location I have not been to before. And I haven't even been to there at all since they remodeled. So, I haven't even been there at all, not even when it was still the original design. So yeah. Now, what did I get from there? I got a sausage McMuffin, which for some reason it was actually cheaper than the sausage egg McMuffin or sausage McMuffin with egg. I said I did not want an egg on my McMuffin. Another one got the egg with it. I also had a medium orange juice along with it. So I haven't had McDonald's breakfast since before the flight to Charleston back in July. Actually, it was back in June. Well, July was on the way back, and that was when I had Burger King for lunch before getting on the flight back home to Chicago. So that really was the whole case there. So, of course, then we went to the grocery store, and then we had lunch from that Chai Tung place all the way down Evergreen Park. And when me and my father went to pick up the food, the front entrance was blocked off. It was because there's construction going on at that place. And I'm not kidding you. The sign literally said, "not enter." I was thinking about getting a picture of it, but that obviously I did not do that. But that was pretty freaking wild to see a sign that, to see the sign say that. It was pretty freaking wild to see the sign say that. So, yeah, to see the sign read that. You have to read those exact words. Yeah, to say those exact words. And then when I came back, of course, I was greeted by my new second cousin, Liam. He was with, I got to see him yesterday with some of the toys that we've had that my family has been storing for many years. One of them in particular. Let me go bring over that one VTech toy I've been talking about last night. Okay. So that VTech toy in particular, it's actually called the Discovery Nursery Farm, and Liam was definitely enjoying that toy, pressing buttons, you know, having it sing stuff and whatnot. You know, we tested out that toy a little bit beforehand just to make sure that it still works. So good to see after all these years that toy is still working well. So I'm very glad that it's still working, so that way my new cousin can enjoy it. And he sure was enjoying it. He was enjoying it really good. So that is something I'm proud of, that he enjoys that. Yeah, that, and we're looking to see if there's any other toys that, I know there's some other toys stored somewhere, so that's something else we're gonna try to get to later. All right, so continuing on here. Yeah, that was last night. And we had a nice selection of fruit. Yeah, definitely something I need. So yeah, after we had lunch, spent some time with them for a few hours, as well as watching the first preseason game for the Chicago Bears for the 2026 season. The next game will be next week against Cincinnati after they beat the Cleveland Browns. So, yeah, then after that, we had some other stuff to get taken care of, and now we're pretty much all situated here. So then later that night, went over to my other grandma, and we played a game of 5 Crown and then several rounds of Rummy Cube. Had Palermo's for dinner, and oh boy, I had a lot of it. And then we played a couple more rounds of Rummy Cube after that before heading back here. So yeah, all before heading back here and, doing our fun game show last night, which, as you all know, only included Yu-Gi-Oh! And the random character extravaganza and not all the other stuff. I hopefully will be able to do all the other stuff next week. The games we normally do on a Friday and a Saturday, so hopefully we'll be able to get to that this week. Alright, so that was yesterday, and then today, of course, as you know, I did begin rendering episodes All right. So, yeah, of course I did begin rendering episodes. However, it seems like it did not like me doing multiple episodes at the same time on 4 different machines. Well, then I tried 2, not only 1, so it seems like it's more of a network thing. I was thinking, I don't know if it's the servers that are having issues, congestion, or is it just the network? I was thinking, because this has been continuing on for a good while, I was thinking more than likely it's the network. So, what I was thinking of doing is, I did get Wheel of Fortune up to 300 and Ticket to Ride to 200. Yahtzee, I just rendered 140 while we were still here. So after the show, and most likely as I continue the exporting process this week, I will. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna set up each of the episodes and then get them and then render those. Once all 4 finish, I'll start the next 4, and basically I'll just keep repeating the process until each and every episode has been rendered, rather than whatever. I know it's kind of inefficient, but this is a totally different network than what I'm used to, because when we did this on the other network last year, we were able to get through all this pretty quickly. So, but this was not the results I was expecting, but we're gonna live with it. So I'll see how much of this week I can get taken care of in just this 1 week. So, well, in 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, perhaps, but we'll see. But yeah, this is only the start of it, so we still got plenty of time to go. To get all this done. So, yeah, that and whatever slices I had left over from Palermo's last night, I went ahead and had those for dinner, as well as kind of usually what I have for my lunch. And then, so that's it really, yeah, then, over the past few days. So, I'll continue rendering episodes tonight after we're done. But then also tonight is KDKA night. I did also say I wanted to do SDR for it, and we'll try that next week for the weekly Test Wednesday extravaganza. We'll do it via the Broadcastify feeds, because, of course, as you may well know, last week I found out that a couple weeks ago, I found out Broadcastify changed their structure. They've locked the static audio URL behind their premium subscription. So, yeah, there was no chance in getting that. Well, as of right now for me. So, I could still feed them through via SDR, which is actually what I'm going to do. But yeah, it's quite complicated. But yeah, when I was talking with when I informed John about it, but I did find out. After he replied back to the question or whatever I was asking him. That actually was on that Tuesday. But now that I think about it, I probably could have rendered episodes earlier. But I wanted to wait until after, we got situated here. But that's okay. But that's okay. It's just my personal preference. So now let's go into the plans for this week. What this week has in store. So, as I've just stated, I will be continuing to render episodes of these shows throughout this week. Yeah, throughout all this week, going into the weekend. But actually, there was one more thing I forgot to mention, too. I also got the rest of the County Request episodes, organized. So I've organized the remaining transmitters into County Request episodes, for each specific date. So pretty much from all the transmitters that I have on that list, the last episode looks to be in March of 2028. So we still got another good 2 years left. So yeah, 2 whole years left of County Request episodes. I couldn't remember from the date. Was it March? Oh, shoot. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Was it March 4th or was it March 11th? I think it was March 11th. It was March 4th, so... Yeah, so March 4th looks to be the last one. Yeah, March 4th looks to be the last County Request episode for, the last of the series, so... That would at that point bring an end to the County Request series that had been going on since 2022. Was it 22 or was it 23? Yeah, I think it was 22. So, yeah. I mean, I've gotten back to County Request in 2022. Hopefully I remember correctly. And I gotta say, it's been a long journey. Just to get up to this point. But now we will be officially completing that journey in just a couple years. So, but I'll talk about the future plans when we get there. So, yeah, as I said, the entirety of this week, possibly going into next week, I will continue to render episodes of these shows. See how much closer I can get them to completion. And then, after these are, finished, that of course, that's when I plan on moving on to filming more Street View episodes. Looking to bring that series, to complete the rest of that series as well. So pretty much then, it won't be on a per request basis. It'll just be like all my other shows. Because what if some plans come up unexpectedly and, So that way then you'll consistently get a new Street View episode at the same time each Saturday. So, that is my ultimate goal, with all of this. But in terms of live shows, of course, the usual stuff. Roblox at 6, the weekly test show this coming Wednesday. Backyard baseball Thursday night, and then the fun night show on Friday. Weekend fun game show Saturday at its usual time, and then we'll just repeat the whole process on Sunday. And then, of course, as I said, when I get back home, I'll tape the rest of the Kind Request episodes. But also, I was thinking about possibly shooting episodes, within like a 2.5 hour block. To sort of accelerate it as quickly as possible. I'll just record 8 episodes, like 2.5 hours worth of episodes each day. It's like from 11:30 to 11 a.m. to like 1:30 p.m. or something. Yeah, I was thinking of doing that. To quickly bring the show to a close. And then I'll, work on the Street View episodes after, that before and after that time slot of all that. And then once all of that is complete, then of course we can move on to the main event. I'm still currently in a debate as to whether I want to do, another 100 episodes of the second season of 5th Grade, or the second half, which would go through 2027. However, based on my thoughts about the cosmetic condition of my Nintendo DS, and that I don't know if it would be viable to, just point at camera and record the whole thing directly at the console, would be viable. Yeah, whether it would be viable or not. So I still got some time to make my final decision. And then, if I decide to do the second half of Season 2 of 5th Grader, if I do decide to do the second half of that, then I will work on that first, and then I'll do Deal or No Deal Jackpot afterwards. And then when that's finished, then I will move on to recording the first season of Play 4 and the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Power of Chaos as its own standalone series, which will replace both 5th Grader and the Bowling Train, respectively, as well as the second season of Play 9, which probably won't come until the spring. And then I'll see what else I can think of for the spring taping cycle and everything else onward. Well, that's currently what it looks like now as we head into the fall taping cycle and potentially the spring. And then the last thing is regarding Downers Grove. So, all right. So we have time for one more game. But we're going to go ahead and speed it up. So we're going to go and play our speed game. Our speed game, where we just speed everything up. So, the final thing then is regarding Downers Grove. Yeah, I was earlier given a fruit bowl. I asked if I wanted a fruit bowl, and I took advantage of the opportunity. Yeah, I had a little fruit bowl of apples, grapes, and a few oranges, which I still have left. But I'll get to that soon. Sorry. So the news regarding Downers Grove. So, as of currently, the So, as of the present moment, that episode of Downers Grove that we had done on Friday, that is, as of right now, the last episode of season 4, and we are right now tentatively declaring it the season 4 finale. But because I'm done with school, and despite that their school year officially begins this Tuesday, which I won't be, there obviously for the first day of. Some news regarding that, and I'll make this as simple as possible. So, as far as I've heard, and I first heard about this on that Friday night, after we were getting set up here, I was informed about it mainly has to do with financial stuff. But I will not go into any detail regarding that, and it's for a good reason. But the only thing I'm going to say about it is, if I were to end up back in Downers Grove following this 2-week stay, it would be more than likely that there would be more Downers Grove episodes, and in fact, it could probably become a new permanent fixture of our lineup. It could. Not certain as of yet, but it could. So, if that does end up happening, well, I'll talk about what's going to end up happening. So, again, as of right now, that episode from Friday is the last episode of Season 4. We are tentatively considering it the Season 4 finale. So, depending on whenever the financial stuff gets sorted with that or not, there is a possibility, yes, and I do say possibility, that we either will end up continuing Season 4, that we may end up continuing Season 4. We may end up continuing Season 4. Let me pull up the correct calendar again. Going into September, or Season 4 will just be totally done right then and there. If I do end up going back to Downers Grove, following this 2-week stay, more than likely the whole thing will continue into will just continue as a weekly. It will then become a weekly show. So essentially saying, just like with the 1% Club Quiz with Balls, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Scrabble, Trivial Pursuit, Password, or basically all those other shows that you see on primetime on the big networks. Just like that, you only get a new episode of that only once a week. So it's going to be sort of like that, essentially, and it's almost like exactly how our Nostalgia Paradise series was. You only got one new episode of that per week until we concluded the show with a special Saturday episode. A special Saturday episode following the end of Windows 10's initial support. But also, depending on how long that'll go on for, there also is a chance that we may actually tout this time frame of sorts into a whole new season. We may actually consider it Season 5. But as of right now, nothing is set in stone. But only I will know. Only I will know eventually. Only I'm going to know, when I know. So, if I do end up going back to Downers Grove, that of course would hinder my ability to, that would kind of delay my ability to do additional County Request episodes and Street View episodes as a whole. But my commitment, that Downers Grove, still got to focus on
focus on, some other important things. So those are going to be the obstacles when it comes to what I've just said about putting together, get more of these kind request episodes and Street View episodes put together to eventually complete the series. So, if Downers Grove ends up happening, I don't know if there's going to be like a set day, like a certain day of the week I'll be going, or if it'll just be, a random day of the week. Like, it could be like 1 week it could be Monday, and then another week it could be Thursday, it could be Tuesday the next week, Friday the week after, and so on and so forth. So, as of right now, that's really all the details I have. So, again, once I know more information, of course, I will pass that along, and in as as good of a form as I can, bring it. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That is going to do it for our Ticket to Ride show here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get the SDR set up so we can have WPLD relay the KDK weekly. And then I'll continue rendering episodes of those shows as I've said. So, again, for now, that's it for us tonight. So, thank you for joining us here, as I am going to be getting back to work rendering the episodes here shortly. And we will see you again on Tuesday night when we bring you our Roblox show. But before I make that assumption, I just want to be totally sure if tomorrow night's 1% clubbing quiz with balls along with the wall will be all new. Oh, it just has to, that's right, it has to update. Gotta give it some time to update everything. Is it up to date? Yeah, it's up to date. Okay. Alright, so everything's up to date. And then is there another one the week after, or is this going to be it? So, oh no, looks like they pushed Beach Exam. So I think this might be the season finale this week of the 1% Club. It might be, but I will not know that until we get there. So, with that being said, we'll be back with you again on Tuesday night when we bring you our next edition of our Roblox show. So, again, it'll be pretty short, but then for Tuesday, the week after, well, I'll have to see what's going to be going on from that point. But until then, thanks again for joining us tonight. On behalf of all of us here at Jesslyn Field Productions, we bid you good night.